welcoming our esteemed panel. We have in this panel more than 150 years of experience in mining. Phenomenal. So we have Mark Cutifani, we have Stacey Hope, we have Florence, Anna, Raksha, Lamise, and Rana. So we're here to talk about diversity and inclusion, which is a super important topic here in the region in the context of the Vision 2030, in the context of the Centres of Excellence that have been announced, in the context of the accelerating demand for metals and minerals, both here in the region and globally. So diversity and inclusion is such an important part of that. Can you hear? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So we've got 30 minutes. We're going to talk about why diversity and inclusion is important. We're going to talk about what we're learning based on the amazing collective experience that we have here. And then we're going to talk about what are the key steps that organisations can take. And so we have a lot to cover, so I've asked our panellists to be very concise in their responses. Some of you may be wondering why we have 1 man and 6 women. And I wanted to ensure that we have a key ally in the room, who's Mark. And Mark said that at Anglo American, they went from 11% women to 33% in a very short space of time and beat all their targets. So that's why Mark is here. And of course, he's an icon in the industry as well. But I'm not going to ask him to speak first. I'm going to ask Stacey. Stacey, who's the MD of Women in Mining UK and has worked around the world. So I'm going to ask Stacey first. Can you please give us your perspective on what diversity and inclusion mean for the future of mining?
Absolutely. And can everyone hear me? I'm not going to shout, but I'll speak extra loud. First of all, it is an honor to speak before Mark. Let's do that more often. And maybe that is a good segue into answering your question. I think one of the things that I have noticed is when we define diversity and inclusion, we're often being quite exclusionary in how we define it. So we use a model, we use a framework that's defined maybe by the Global North, and we expect that to resonate in various jurisdictions. But we have to really understand what the diversity and inclusion starting point is in each jurisdiction. Does it resonate? And if we're speaking outside of a context that's within, let's say, Saudi or the Middle East, then we lose our audience really quickly. So maybe the strategic direction is understanding that DE&I, or diversity and inclusion, it has many different layers. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And in order to construct this definition, we have to think about the community as a whole. So who exists within this community in which we're defining? And if we're thinking of community, then we're thinking of everyone and not just the select few.
So representative of the communities around our mining business.
Absolutely, and understanding that communities are not stagnant. We have mining communities, mining companies come in. There might be 1,000 or 2,000 people around from the onset, but all of a sudden we have 150,000 within a short space of time. That is now a new community that the mining company has actually enabled. So how are we including those people?
Yeah.
So we have to understand that it is also something that's ever evolving, and we have to be able to capture everyone in that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stacey. I'm now going to turn to Lamise. So Lamise is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Ma'aden. And so I really was particularly interested to hear from Lamise, for you to hear from Lamise. Businesses are at different points in their journey of diversity and inclusion around the world. And Lamise has taken quite an interesting approach to developing diversity and inclusion within Mahadhan. So if I could turn to you, Lamise, and you could share with us that approach.
I don't know. Can you hear me? Yes. So in Mahadhan in particular, we're not focusing on the numbers per se, because we feel like at this point we need to look at a robust foundation and infrastructure that needs to be built in order to retain the female employees that we have and also attract the females that are coming in the organization. And some of the things that we've been doing is that we have strategic partnerships. One was with King Fahd of Petroleum and Minerals University, where we're sponsoring young male and female students to study in the mining program that they just newly created. And also in the SMP, the Saudi Mining Polytech Institute, where we have the first group of Saudi females joining the institute, which was this year. So building the technical capabilities that we need to build in the kingdom is something that we are definitely focused on at this stage. Even though we've had a 43% increase in the numbers this year, this is just a result of our focus on the foundation and infrastructure. It is not our main goal, but it comes with the continuous efforts that we're doing. And the fact that the kingdom and what's happening outside of Mahadhan is with regards to supporting females and all the leadership positions that we see them taking. Anything that we're doing in the organization takes off immediately and in a very fast pace, because the change is not just within, it is across the country. And in our organization, we're looking at making sure they have the right accommodations. They feel safe when they work on the ground in remote areas. We are helping the women that are residing near to our work sites in the mines as well. And so it's definitely an approach of looking into sustainable positive results rather than quick wins and quick increase of numbers in the organization.
That's fantastic, and a really nice tie-in to what Stacey said as well about the importance of reflecting what we're seeing within the broader community and society. So thank you very much for that, Lamise. I'm now going to turn to Mark. And Mark, could you share with us your experience in Anglo-American, the key points that you want to offer to this audience?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Wendy, and also it's great to be on the panel, so I feel honoured to be asked. And again, congratulations to the organisers, the country, for putting on a great show, and it really is quite remarkable what's been achieved in 3 years. In thinking about articulating, I guess, a position from the male perspective, but more importantly, I think it's about leadership. And it doesn't matter who's in that leadership role. The really important thing first is to make sure you establish a culture of transparency, of engagement, the willing to listen to different sides of the stories and different perspectives, because in the end, inclusion and diversity has a real business imperative. And the business imperative is, one, access to talent. So why would you exclude yourself from accessing the brightest, most capable individuals available? Two, the ability to bring different views together in the workplace that not only reflect business perspectives, they also have to respect or reflect social perspectives. And the more diverse or the more our workplace reflects society, the more likely we're going to be to have the right conversations in the business about how we serve society in the right way to deliver value to all of our stakeholders. And I don't think that can be underestimated. Ultimately, the working dynamic and the relationships that form inside the workplace have to be constructive, they have to be positive, and again, if you've got the right culture in the organisation, then the employment theorists tell us that you should be able to do 20 or 30% better because you're in the right conversation, you've got the right people, and you've got people motivated to want to do the best they can. Beyond the business imperative, I think there's also a moral imperative to give people equal opportunities, the chance to be who they'd like to be and to make a contribution and be part of a team. And I think in today's world, an awareness of those types of issues is what does differentiate us in society as being progressive, constructive, and ultimately supportive of creating a great business. So I think inclusion and diversity goes with creating a great business.
Lovely. And is there also a connection there to creativity and innovation in businesses, having that diversity of expertise and views?
I think even more so. Having again those different perspectives and understanding people's different view on to look at the same, or how to look at the same problem, and having the capability to turn that into something different, that diversity I think is absolutely critical, particularly in a world where you're defined by inches in terms of your competitive position. So every advantage you can bring into the workplace through people is, in my view, a sustainable advantage. And it's people. Businesses aren't the tables or the roof or the assets. It's about the people. They are the ones that make the difference.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Mark. I'm going to turn to Raksha now, and you are very interested in leadership accountability, which is a nice follow-on from what Mark has spoken about. So, Raksha, could you give us your perspective on why that's important and what you think we can do to tackle leadership accountability?
So I think Mark's described it very nicely about leadership's got the responsibility of creating the culture and the right culture more than anything. And I think from a DE&I perspective, leadership gives the concept of diversity and inclusion life. Because if we don't breathe life into it from a leadership perspective and filter it all the way down, it almost becomes a tick box exercise. And we're doing it because we need to comply with whatever regulations, whatever standards are needed in order to succeed in the country or community that you're operating in. And I think that leadership plays the most important part in it. And I think that if we don't believe in what we want to achieve, we'll never get the outcome that we need to. Because if we're not understanding and are clear and transparent about what does diversity actually mean? Who are we trying to include in the journey? How do we bring everybody together, whether it's employees, communities, stakeholders, regulatory bodies? It's a collective, and the collective coming together is that much stronger in achieving the goals as opposed to all of us pulling in completely different directions. So leadership have the biggest role from an accountability perspective, and it almost should be built into our KPIs, because then it becomes real and tangible even at an executive level.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Raksha. I'm now going to turn to Florence. And Florence, you've had an amazing career so far where you've established an organisation for Indigenous women in mining, and now as an Australian Indigenous woman you're running a global organisation. Very cool. What's your perspective on what's important, what's most important for diversity and inclusion?
Thank you, Andy, and definitely big boots to fill, carrying over your role with DPI. But for me, I really look towards automation. I think when we think about diversity and inclusion and our workforce that we currently have, what are the risks, or what are the items that we really have to address when we're looking towards the future? So really, in reality, we do have automation that's very real for people who are operators right now. And what does that look like? And are we addressing it in a way that we're building capability not only with people who are in their current roles, but also around the local ecosystem as well. So when you spoke about communities before, how are we uplifting people who want to be entrepreneurs who are already in the workforce? I think really thinking about how do we diversify these economic mechanisms or levers that we have in front of us, and using the human capital that we do have and upskilling in an appropriate way where we can be strategic around uplifting the economy, but also then having that as a sustainable investment into the future. So I think that in terms of strategic development at a global level, I think is very healthy and sound for the industry in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Florence. And now, last but definitely not least, Rana, you hold a very senior role in the ministry here in Saudi Arabia, and you work directly for His Excellency. Can you give us your perspective on what you're seeing for diversity and inclusion, and particularly what the future holds in this region?
Yeah, thank you so much. And if I want to tell that we are just witness signing MOU between our industrial ministry and mining resources and Women in Mining UK. And that's because we have that approach. And already the private sector maybe approached diversity and inclusion long time ago. But today the government is go more to innovation, and we are here hosting by our government Mine Future Mineral Forum. So if we talk about future and where is the women in the future definitely by the women. It's not because the diversity in any sector is unnecessary today. If you look to the best photo in Saudi winning the media award, it's the Saudi lady soldier hold that baby from the saver soldier. So women playing different role today, and the diversity is not an act, it's a fact. So we live it today. Today we take the first step to go to the outcome, and I'm sure next year we will meet here and you will see some initiative already with all this lady. I'm honored to be part of this panel with South Africa, Central America, Australia, and UK. So yeah, that's the situation now.
Thank you, Rana. And I'm so sorry, Anna. I missed Anna. So we have incredible representation here from women in mining organisations, and Anna is the founder and president of Women in Mining for Central America, so brings a lot of experience also. So if I could turn to you, Anna, and my sincere apologies again, and if you could give us your perspective on what you've learned and how that could be applied in this region.
No, thank you. I think it's my first time in Saudi, and I'm super thankful to be here. But the more I'm here and the more I meet women from the Saudi region, I see more similarities with us. We are from a region, I'm from Guatemala, that is in Central America next to Mexico. And in Central America as well, like in Saudi, we don't have a long history in mining. We started mining maybe, in the 70s, but then it was stopped, and really it started again in 2000s. So I think there's quite a lot of similarities just with how young the industry is in our region. And then I think also how we as a society are also very conservative. So I think there's a lot of similarities with that. So I think when I think about the diversity and inclusion piece in Latin America, and I compare it a bit here, I think where it really adds value is, and I think it's not just about what also Stacy was saying before, it's just not just about the gender piece and the different ethnicities, but it's more than that. When I think about our region, I have to think, well, we have to consider people from, just from the city, because maybe that's where the people that have higher education are, but how we integrate the people also from the rural areas that are closer to the mining sites normally. Then also how we integrate people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, because also we have a big difference and very escalonated difference in how our society is divided. So how we take people that are in a disadvantage also just because of their socioeconomic status. And then as well, for example, because we are don't have a lot of mining history, we don't have a lot of people with a lot of mining experience. So how we take that experience that have people in other industries and bring it and use that as an innovation. I always think about this piece when I visited a mine in Central America, and I met a lady that was in charge in the mining site of the camp. And she was before in the hotel industry. And she brought these amazing ideas, just like we were feeling we were in a resort in the mine. And I think that is part of the innovation, that we don't have to think, we have to be from a mining background as well, but just how we integrate and make it diverse also from the experiences that we have from abroad. So I think that it makes it enriches, and that's why I think that mining companies should consider having a diversity and inclusion practice as part of their core as well of the industry.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Anna. And as the structure of our industry around the world changes and we see more automation, to Florence's point as well, that bringing women into different roles, that's such a great example, Anna, of the opportunities that there are in the sector globally. So now I'm going to ask each of the panelists to give us their view on and it's going to be, we've got 5 minutes, so it's going to be a bit less than a minute each. What's a practical step that we can take here in Saudi Arabia and in the region? What's a practical step that we can take to advance diversity and inclusion, either in organisations or for individuals? What can individuals walk away with? So I'm going to start with Stacey again.
One step. It's very hard to say one step because it's a culmination of things, and I think we've all kind of maybe listed that, especially when we talk about foundation. So maybe borrowing from you, Lamise, in terms of what does that foundation look like? And I think it's really important that we hone in on retention, because the foundation needs to be how do we retain, but maybe looking more future, in forward-looking. If we have a more forward-looking approach, then we're able to design back what that approach should be. So maybe my
So create the foundation.
Foundation, but building the foundation from the future, moving back.
Lovely.
There we
I'm
go.
going to go to Mark now, and then I'm going to go to each of you in order.
A practical consideration in developing employment policies. This is always really difficult. In terms of making sure you're bringing the right people in or giving yourself a chance to bring the people in that you'd like to build that diversity with, 3 points to be careful of. First, any person you bring in must be capable of doing the work. That is, they've got the ability to solve the problems at the right level. I think that is not negotiable for whoever it is. 2, domain knowledge is an advantage, but not critical. So you've got lots more flexibility in the domain area, except if it's safety or something really technical. So you can look for people much broader on domain knowledge and experience. In most cases, they won't have experience. That's where we can really make a difference and bring people into the organisation, develop and grow them, and in the organisation, deal with unconscious bias and build the organisation structures to support new people in the business.
That was 3.
Thanks very much, Mark. Florence.
I think
Yes, I would definitely recommend working with your value chain. So if you've got your business partners, if you're looking upstream, downstream, working together to really solve this problem and make it a win for the industry and really amplifying that as well. So I think demonstrating that you're not just doing this by yourself, but using the people around you as well to really strengthen those relationships as well, because then of course your businesses will also flourish from this diverse labour force, diverse workplace, but a really safe culture as well. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Thanks, Florence. Anna.
I would definitely I'm a big educational advocate. So I think education is key to drive anything that you need to move forward, and that can have several forms. I want to advertise my book for that as well, because you need to reach not just the older generations, but also start really from the beginning with the youth and the base, like Stacy was saying, right? You have to start with the beginning. So I think educating in all levels, up to the board levels, I think it's important.
So Anna, among her many talents, has written and published a book.
Yeah, thank you.
Raksha.
So I'm going to speak about it, I think, from a self perspective. Our theme at Women SA last year was to be bold, to be brave, and to be you. And I think that the one thing that each of us needs to take and is an individual approach, and especially as women, own who you are. Have faith and confidence in yourself to be the leaders of the future. Take control of your future, your destiny. Educate yourself, get yourself ready, and have the strength and the self-confidence and awareness to become the future leaders in this industry. Because when we become stronger as well as women entering this industry or sustaining in this industry, or even becoming the leaders of tomorrow in the industry, all of these other pieces then become the next step of what we need to do, because we are confident and ready to become the future that we need.
I'm so pleased you brought that in. That's about our personal. It's about what we can do as individuals.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Raksha. Lamise.
I think the most important thing is that we don't see D&I as just an initiative. It needs to be embedded in our overall strategy in the organization, put it in our KPIs until it's woven into the fabric of our culture, where we don't need to bring more awareness to it, where it's our new norm and just our culture in the organization. I think that's extremely important.
Thank you very much. And Rana.
I want to conclude this, that we shouldn't forget the role of the divers we have here from across the world. And the best things we have to do is telling and share the stories, so we will learn from each other. And this is what I did before with Florence, Stacy, and Anna. And I'm looking for more stories with different countries, because however it's different culture and policies, but challenges women in mining are similar almost. And I'm a volunteer to design the first vest for the women, while Stacy gave me a code that the women from cotton and copper. So I'm a volunteer to do the first vest for women in mining.
That's a fabulous note to end on. I'd like you to join me in thanking our amazing panel, our esteemed and very experienced panelists. And I hope that that's been useful for you to hear about diversity and inclusion. And please reach out to the panelists. I'm sure that they'd be happy to share more of their stories about their experiences of applying and thinking about diversity and inclusion. So please join me in thanking our panelists.